Yes, thank you. Recording in progress. So welcome everyone who already joined and also our panelists today's session. The title is Solving the Localization Industry Talent Gap, and I think this is a super important and interesting topic, and I'm glad to see that many agree with this. As I said earlier, let's start with the usual housekeeping. First, we will have the discussion with the 5 panelists. I will do the introduction for them shortly. And then in the end, there will be a Q&A session. So about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, depending. You will be able to, and we ask you actually to unmute yourself, turn on your camera if you want, ask your questions live. But if you want to just, enter the question in the chat box, then that's also totally okay. When you have it in your mind, there is Zoom, so use it as a notebook as well. We will get back to this at the end of the discussion. As you can see, there is a recording already that has been started, so you will be able to download the discussion file in a few days from the GoAP website. You will receive an email notification, of course, so you can also share it with others who couldn't make it today in your team, maybe. And what else? I think these are the most important things. So please just lean back and enjoy. And then I'm happy to do the introduction for our great panelists. I will go alphabetical order. So starting with Nicole Bryan, who is the Associate Dean of Academic Programs at Fordham University in New York. With over 20 years of experience in higher education at both the undergraduate and graduate levels, Nicole currently works to advance the collective vision of her institution to further strategic priorities and align program offerings to market needs. Then we have Steve Chu on the panel, who is the president of Treehouse Strategy, a management consulting company specializing in the language industry. He is also the founder and executive director of the Localization Organization of Asia Pacific, or GoAP, and Steve hails from New York. Third panelist, Steve Lank, is the Vice President of Translation Services at Denver, Colorado-based Cesco Linguistics Services. And I must mention that this is the short of Francesco, that's how you and that's why it's Cesco, how you pronounce it. And they provide translation and interpreting services to private and public sector clients in over 200 languages. Gilberto Segura is the Chief Technology Officer for Compass Languages and Global E-Learning, and he's also the founder of Voxabot, a synthetic media company. And then the 5th panelist today is Jacqueline Yanus, who is the Regional Program Director at LWS and leads a large global team of project and program managers that service a diverse portfolio of localization customers with a primary mission of helping them to solve their localization needs and achieve their content goals. And my name is Ágnes, and I represent BeLazy, a technology company here today, although simply moderating the session. So, and now after the instruction, let's dive in. And the idea, and well, actually the title of the session today, which I very like, came from Steve Chu. So Steve, I will direct the first question to you because I think it's a provocative question in a way. It suggests that there is a talent gap in the language industry. So I wonder that, what do you mean by that? What is this gap that you see?
Thank you, Ágnes, and welcome everyone. Treehouse Strategy is a management consulting company, and as a management consultant, and I go to a lot of these international language industry conferences and events, and also speak to many different language companies, hiring managers on both the vendor side, language companies, as well as the client side. And also previously, prior to starting Treehouse Strategy, I had been working in the language industry on the vendor side for about 10, 11 years. So one consistent and persistent piece of feedback that I hear from hiring managers and from company owners and executives is that it's very, very difficult to find and hire people with the right skill sets in the language industry, particularly when it comes to roles such as project managers. And besides the translators and interpreters, project managers is really where there's sort of the greatest hiring need, right, for language companies. Similar roles such as project managers and project coordinators. So that's really the consistent, really complaint that I hear over and over again from company owners and hiring managers, that the kind of people that they see and encounter in the workforce do not have the requisite project management skills or the soft skills, people skills, communication skills, etc., or the technical skills, right? Knowing the things like the CAT tools, TMS tools. So it's really led me to think over the years that that's really a challenge that we all face in this industry. In every conference that I go to, invariably, this is a hot topic that generates a lot of conversation. So that's what I see as the talent gap.
Thank you, Steve. And Jackie, I see you very much nodding to this. So I wonder what you see as a gap.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So as a larger vendor in the localization industry, we're definitely seeing that there's right now a very small group of seasoned professionals, and that can do the job of, say, a localization PM. And there's not enough of them to fill this ever-growing field. So this industry continues to expand with content explosions, ever-expanding language needs, organizations going global, and the need for seasoned talent is greater than ever. Because it can take anywhere from 3 to 9 months to truly get a localization PM up and running, and those are even seasoned professionals up and running, employers are essentially fighting for that small subset of individuals. We're also seeing younger professionals are coming in with great theory from linguistic or localization programs, but they lack the ability to put it into practice immediately, which results in longer onboarding times with their employers and really then hesitancy by employers to hire them. So it's really this vicious cycle of everyone wanting very few people and not being able to take on the risk of younger professionals.
That's interesting. You said this 9 months, 12 months that it takes. It's really a long time.
It is.
I agree. Gilberto.
Yeah. So I mean, I recently was trying to fill a couple positions, and it took a while. And it's not just because there weren't any good candidates. There were a lot of good candidates as individuals, but the skills were definitely not there in many cases. And to piggyback on what Jacqueline was saying was that there's the ability, the emotion, the want to do it, but I don't know how, and it's granted that, the technology space is like, there's Trados, there's MemoQ, there's, Plunet, there's all these different tools that we use or we encounter, and you may not have them all, which is fine. I understand the mosaic of possibilities, but there's some fundamentals missing. Like, I don't even know what segmentation is, or I don't know what a translation, how that works, or, so there's like different levels. And so almost every person I hire, I feel like I'm going to be hiring a junior person. That's the handicap that hiring managers just feel that's what they're getting into. And it's okay, but it also means you pay people less, you have lower expectations, the performers happen later. So everything's about a year late, or 6 months and 9 months, but up to a year. And then after that, then they're wonderful. So people are smart. It's just that they're not getting the skills.
And you both mentioned, thank you, Gilberto, and you both mentioned the skills, which we will get back to later. But first, I want to ask Steve Lank as well, as a language service provider and someone who hires project managers. Do you agree with this, or do you have anything to add regarding you are muted, Steve?
I was muted.
No, it's now better. Thank you.
No, I agree with everything that's been said. I mean, I was particularly taken with what Jackie just said about the 3 to 9 months, which was a scary number for we're a much smaller organization than RWS, and we need people that can come in and get up to speed pretty quickly, right? So I think the issue, I would just highlight again that students get a lot of theory in their training, but they don't get a lot of practical experience. So the big gap that I see is the practical experience and sort of the fully rounded view of what the cycle is and sort of where problems might, sort of being able to anticipate where problems might come up. We do a much better job, I think, of training the language specific skills that are needed for the actual language work, the interpreting and the translation. There's more and more programs that are popping up, certainly in the US and in other places. That's always been something that's been a good focus, but it's these project management skills and particularly the technical skills that are required and the critical thinking that's required to manage a project and juggle multiple projects are missing. And I would also support what Gilberto has just said about the technical skills. I mean, we see a lot of people that have been given an introduction to a CAT tool, but haven't really used them or not really sure how to work with them. And the other part that we see that's missing is just familiarity with all the different types of file types that you have to deal with and manage as a project manager, and what kind of issues, translation issues might arise as a result of working in those different things. So I think the project management skills, the practical skills, and the technical skills are what's really missing.
And this is, and I also agree that this can be something where focus should be maybe from the view of the hiring managers, or the hiring managers. But what do you think? Because I don't really think that this is something that can be totally done on the academia side. I think Jackie, you mentioned the industries and or the academia already. So I wonder that like, how can the industry help with this? What can we do as industry professionals and future employees to do to help to overcome this issue? Who would like to answer this? Steve, I think Steve Lank, yeah, because you brought this up, then I would leave it for you.
And Diego actually raised his hand too, so yeah, Steve.
Okay, I would just say that I think, what industry can do is to get out there and support academia. I mean, we've been complaining for as long as the industry has existed, or certainly for as long as I've worked in it, we've been complaining about this issue. And I think it's contingent upon us to sort of step up and step in to support academia and the programs, to show them what we need and to actually get back into the classroom ourselves and help to train these new professionals, because I think the academic institutions, educational institutions do a good job of training the theory, but we need to show them what we need and how they're going to take that and apply it practically. And they can only know that from people that are out in industry. So I think industry needs to step in and help.
Thank you. So thank you, Steve, and thank you also, Diego, clarifying that it was an applause, actually. So I can hand over the word to the panelists, because I think Steve too has also something to say about this.
Well, yeah, actually,
what can the industry do?
Well, in product development groups, right? Product development groups have this sort of metric called, time to market, to sort of measure how long it takes to get their product to the market, to commercialize it. And when I was a hiring manager in language companies, we also have an internal sort of KPI, sort of play off the time to market. We call it time to productivity. And sort of, and which speaks to the point that Jackie raised, the 3 to 9 months. So that was a metric that we use internally to measure the time it takes to get somebody from day one, from the time that that person walks in through the door, to the point where we can get that person sort of fully productive, right? So so that's one of the metrics that we had used. And as far as what the industry can do, and in full disclosure and full transparency, in thinking about this talent gap in the industry over these years, one thing that I feel is needed is a closer partnership between the academia and the industry. And so this is why we at GoAP, that is, have approached Fordham University and have partnered with Fordham University to create this project management localization project management certificate program. And the intent is to address this very talent gap need that we see, right? So the goal of this program is to prepare the students with the requisite project management skills, the technical skills such as the CAT tools, also just as important, the communication, client-facing skills that project managers need. So that's sort of the reason, in full disclosure, why we created this program in the first place.
Thank you, Steve, and also thank you mentioning the program that we already advertised all over LinkedIn and social media. And I would take the opportunity to ask Dean Bryan as well, as the representative of Fordham University, that and then two questions right away. The one is that what do you think, because we already discussed what the industry should do or could do to solve the talent gap issue. And I wonder what your thoughts are on what the academia's role, the role of the academia is in this case. And because Steve already mentioned the certificate program, if you could just elaborate that what was and why did Fordham create this certificate program? What was your vision with that?
Yes, good. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be part of this conversation. It's so timely. And yes, I certainly do echo the two Steves. They've brought something very important to the table, and that is being able to meet the needs of people who are looking for an education, right? And being able to do so in a timely manner. So in academia, we need that specific niche expertise that we don't have in-house. And our industry partners are the individuals who are able to provide us with that expertise. We found that people who are looking to advance their education are becoming a lot more discerning as to where they want to get that education from and what they're looking for. They do want a turnaround. They want to be able to identify that practical applicability. And it's through our partnerships where we are able to do that. And we're very discerning when it comes to our partners, because the people we partner with are a direct reflection of the quality of the programming that we're going to produce and the quality of the student we're going to send out into the market. So when we reflect on Treehouse strategy and the other partners that are here with us today, that brings tremendous value to what we can offer in preparing our students for new careers or to enhance the careers that they already have. Localization itself, to expand a little bit on the second part of your question, is a program in our portfolio that we've added that holds significant potential for future growth. We've identified that, we've seen that. We're looking to establish these niche markets. The pandemic has really amplified the need for more global approaches to education, and being more creative in how we educate people, and for them to be able to, not to be cliche, but hit the ground running. That's essentially what we're trying to help our students prepare to do now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dean Bryan. And actually, this leads me to something that I'm always very interested in all levels, which is partnership. You also mentioned partnership, and this is something that Steve too brought up as well. And I think that's always the key for success. Together we are stronger, of course. And we talk here about industry representatives providing practical insights and possibilities, and the academia being on the theoretical side. So I wonder, how do you see this partnership, where it could evolve? How should it change? What kind of collaboration do you see there? There are some practices already, which you are also, please mention them, that you already do. And you mentioned creativity, Dean Bryan, so this is also the place where you can go wide with the thoughts, and where could it go when it comes to partnership? And Dean Bryan, I think if you can continue then.
Yes, I'm glad to jump in again. Absolutely. So yes, practical application is at the forefront for us with the localization program. So in assessing the curriculum, we're also looking at what value added can we offer to students to really enhance the experience. In academia, we'll confess, and we're not ashamed of it. We're really good at theory, right? We're really good at theory. We do it well. We know how to do it. But now that we're looking towards direct parallels to career outcomes for our students, that has to shift a little bit, right? And it has to shift in a way where we're going to help students to build the skills that will directly relate to growing industries. And we can do that in a few ways. And Steve Chu and I have talked about that, through offering opportunities for networking, for these students to be able to speak with and meet with people within the industry to really get a comprehensive perspective of what it is to be a member of the localization community, and what their expectations should be, and how they should be preparing themselves while they're in this program of study to really step into spaces and represent themselves in ways that will lead to very positive career outcomes for them. The practical application aspect of it, and that's something, again, that we spoke about in program creation. We don't want it to be exclusively a theory-based program. We want to drill down on those hard skills that individuals need to have when they step into the workplace in order to start making an impact as soon as they get in. Gilberto made a perfect point about, there is an expectation for training, and that's true within any industry, right? You bring in a new employee, there's a learning curve. But there are also things that we can do in academia to ensure that that curve isn't as steep, right? To make it a little bit of an easier climb, both for our students and for the organizations for which they will be working. I'll reach out to Steve here to talk more too about a unique aspect of what we're doing in regard to internships, and perhaps Jacqueline can jump in there as well. Because for a certificate program that we're offering, where we want to have that quick turnaround for individuals, internships are a very unique aspect, and it's not something that's very common in the non-credit field. So for individuals who are looking to either refine their skills or build these skills, you'll really find that unique aspect to our program where you are able to get some hands-on experience while you are doing your studies.
I think, Steve, you already unmuted yourself, so.
I'll jump in as well. So even to this day, in the capacity of management company, right, we continue to be recruiting and hiring project managers, but we just do so on behalf of our clients. And one thing we look for in resumes and CVs is mentions of MemOQ and MemSource or Plunet and the like, right? Those are sort of words that catch my eye when I see them in a resume in a project manager, because they are sort of relatively rare unless you are already in the translation industry. So it's not often, we get a lot of resumes. I'm sure all the hiring managers on this call, on this webinar today can probably echo the same sentiment. We get a lot of resumes from people outside of the industry, and that do not mention those sort of tools or skill sets that we're looking for. So when they're mentioned, they catch my eye. And so I think the point is that, well, you can't get the experience until you work it. So that's sort of the ultimate chicken and egg, dilemma, right? You need experience to get the job, but you need to have the job to get the experience. And that's really where I feel the internship that comes in. And so one thing that we are looking for in this program that we're partnering with Fordham, as Dean Bryan mentioned, is a very close partnership with the industry. We're looking to partner with private sector companies who are looking to offer internship, or either on a summer internship, or even potentially part-time employment, or even full-time employment, right, for graduates of our program. So that's one thing that I'll mention. And second thing is that we really view this program not just in a traditional model of educators educating students, but more of an open dialogue to have a discourse with the industry about the talent pool. So I really see this program situated as part of an ecosystem to create those conversations. And on that note, tactically, well, what does that mean? We do want to invite industry practitioners to come into this certificate program to be guest speakers. And also, in full disclosure, some of the panelists on this call are actually instructors in the program, and people like Steve Lank and Gilberto are instructors, and they are, and myself included, are all working practitioners in the field. And RWS is actually a perfect example, right? We're actually looking to partner with RWS to offer this sort of internship program. And, maybe Jackie, you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
Absolutely. So RWS has what we call a campus program. It's a global program where we partner with hundreds of universities worldwide to provide students with the opportunity to get real life experience, both within the classroom by giving them access to technology or going and speaking at particular sessions or training on particular pieces of tooling and technology. But also giving them the opportunity to have intern and grad programs with us. So we're really excited to partner with the Fordham program so that we can bring on individuals into that campus program. So we like to partner and bring people into the industry to give them that real life application.
Thank you, Jackie. And I just remembered when I started as a project manager, and there were also internship possibilities. And I think it's a good opportunity also for all the representatives of different companies on this call today to hear about this, that you also have this chance to apply or just say, hey, we would be also happy to provide internship opportunities to future industry professionals. So you are all welcome to do that, I would say. And I think it's something that we do for each other and for ourselves as well. So it doesn't, but you can also in the end probably, and that's what I hear, that you also, it's kind of nurturing those professionals, Jackie, right? So you, hopefully they will still stay longer than with the company and build their career there.
Absolutely. We'd love for them to stay at RWS long term, but I look at it as supporting the industry, being able to, if we don't have an open position, at least then we're giving the industry somebody who's been trained and has that real life application that hopefully will help another organization.
Yeah, thank you. And earlier you already mentioned, and at this point, I would like to go back to the topic of the required skills, because we keep hearing now in the various comments, the skills that are required for these positions. And I wonder what soft skills and what technical skills do you see with that? And let me first ask Gilberto about the technical skills, because this was very heavily there in the air already. And I think this is something that you have something to say about.
Yeah, the practical skills are, can you import a file to a CAT tool? Do you know how the CAT tool works? Do you know how it doesn't work? And these are interesting skills because they can really screw things up if you're not paying attention, and you may not know that something got screwed up until it's kind of late. So, it happens across the board, from the sales perspective, the project management perspective. The translator gets a bad file. The translator sends back a bad file. You deliver a bad file to the client, or, so there's all these little bits of pieces that end up meaning a lot. And then they're not really, on face value, they look insignificant. Is there a dot whatever extension to this file name? What does that mean? So there's a lot of just, I'd say, trickery in the software world, and it's not necessarily intentional. It's just over time, and it's a matter of navigating that and being familiar with it. Does everyone know that Microsoft Word documents and PowerPoints are actually zip files? You can open them in a zip program and see the contents. It's a game changer if you use it right. It's also very problematic if you use it wrong. But there's definitely a lot of things like that are just basically gotchas. And so it's a lot of the skill is more of, can I go through routine? Can I learn from it? Do I have the problem solving skills to analyze this and then put the information in a usable form? Like, I can Google it, but what am I Googling for? What am I searching for? And I think that kernel, that little bit of wisdom, is really what propels you forward. Is not only do I know the problem space, but I also have some tools to dissect and analyze what I'm facing.
Oh yeah, Googling with the right question is definitely a big trick and
That's
good
right.
to know. That's something. And about the soft skills, Steve Lank, I would drop this question first to you then. What would you say? What are the important?
Well, yeah, obviously, Gilberto told us about the tech skills, and that's 100% true. But what we look for in terms of soft skills, really, and they're kind of hard to quantify, even when you're interviewing a person. So you sort of a lot you can find out a lot when you're in your sort of initial period working with someone. But it's really the problem solving and critical thinking skills are hugely important. Like Gilberto said, I mean, if you don't know something, you can't figure something out. Can you figure that out on your own? You know how to can you get to a solution and know where to go and how to find information? You need to be pretty self-reliant, I think. Not that you're not working in a team, but you have to be able to think quickly and move quickly. It's a high pressure environment. We can't sugarcoat that part of it. It's project management and production generally. There's a lot of moving parts and things are going on. A lot of things are being juggled at the same time. So you have to be able to manage that. So how do you manage stress? I guess is the other thing. What was I going to say? Also, in terms of problem solving and critical thinking, I had something here on the tip of my tongue. Communication skills. I mean, a project manager, project management is really you're working with so many people in the flow of a project that it's really like you have to be a very persuasive, right? I mean, you're sort of like interacting with people all day long, and sometimes it's not under the best of circumstances. You're managing client expectations, you're managing your partner expectations, you're managing your internal client expectations and your internal team expectations. So you have to be able to communicate with all of those people, get them what they need, while at the same time you're getting what you need from them to get things done at the same time. And that's a really delicate balance, and not everybody can do that. So the communication part and sort of interpersonal skills for project management are hugely important.
Thank you, Steve. Jackie.
Go ahead.
No, just go ahead.
I was just going to say exactly what Steve has already said. Project managers are the center of the cog. We interact with many, many different types of stakeholders. And what I really look for is the ability for somebody to be able to handle that. It's not easy. You can have great technical skills, but if you're not able to communicate to difficult stakeholders in a very matrixed organization, you're not going to be successful. So being emotionally aware and emotionally intelligent is really key for this position.
And I wanted to ask you that in this program that you mentioned, and I totally agree that these soft skills are very important. And from my experience, I also have to say that when I started my career, of course, I was less professional in these things than I hope I am today. So this is, of course, something that people grow into, some quicker, some maybe slower. But in your program, for instance, do you teach these skills? Do you offer courses? Do you coach the interns or the applicants somehow? Jackie, the question goes to you.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if you were positioning.
Yeah. Sorry, I was not obvious with that. Yeah.
So we do, especially with our younger interns, we like to start with them a little bit more behind the scenes. So usually internal stakeholders are a bit more forgiving than external stakeholders. So we like to start them under that bit of a shield so that they get exposure to difficult situations, but perhaps they are not as critical when it comes to the end result in the decisions that they make. We also do give them experience to customers and to external stakeholders, but with the support of a more senior team member. So the senior team member is leading the conversations and leading the discussions and leading the problem solving, but the intern or the grad is right there with them. So they get to watch and they get to really understand perhaps some of the nuances that we have to bring to the table as localization PMs.
Yeah, that sounds great. And there is another thing, because just recently I attended another conference, and this always comes up somehow, and I actually wonder that none of you mentioned this, because I see two different schools there in this practice, whether a linguistic background is needed to be or to become a good localization project manager. And I know that people think about this differently, and I'm really eager to hear your opinion. Jackie, you want to start? Because you are unmuted, so you can be the first one, and then let's see who fires back.
So as somebody that did not grow up in this industry in linguistics, I think it's a nice to have, but it's not absolutely critical. I think awareness of the what's going on globally, international experience, perhaps living abroad or even traveling abroad, can give you those insights. Really what I look for in project management is more the ability to understand different cultures, to be sensitive to different cultures. But at the end of the day, I'm not convinced that a background in linguistics gives anybody an additional edge than perhaps somebody that went through a localization PM certificate program.
Mm-hmm. Steve Lank.
Aha.
I hope. What is your take on this?
Well, I actually agree. I have a bias myself towards people who are trained translators and interpreters, because that's my background, and sort of I started that way, and that was my entree into the industry. And I actually started out as an intern myself. I was actually just thinking about that. I forgot to mention that. So I really appreciate what Jackie and RWS are doing. But no, I think the more important thing, I mean, it's helpful. It can be helpful, but it's not. I wouldn't say that's required that you be a trained translator or interpreter. I think it's very, very important to have be culturally sensitive and have a sense, and maybe have sort of a sense of some kind of sort of intercultural experience, maybe some international experience, just sort of a sense of what's going on in the world. But I wouldn't say that translation, having that background is necessarily required. And I would say I actually have been in situations, having thought about this a little bit more, where it can be a hindrance in some cases. If you're too invested in the translation or interpreting part of a project or an assignment, you can sort of lose track of some of the other parts. So I've revised my thinking since we originally talked about this. But I mean, I do like to have translators and interpreters in those roles, because I think it helps them identify problems specifically. But I think those types of things can be trained. I think sort of the cultural sensitivity and the ability to sort of anticipate, problems along the way is really the more important part. So I would say, it's a nice to have.
Yeah, see what I mean about industry discourse, right? I mean, yesterday a couple of days ago, we had a rehearsal, and then there was a very well-meaning and good-hearted debate about this topic. So I'm actually just kind of curious if people could just use the raise your hand feature. Those of us who feel that having a language background or being able to speak another language is really, really important in hiring a project manager or anyone in the role. I mean, you raise your hand, or either
Gilberto,
I'll chip in, and it's actually kind of funny because I see both sides of it. Like when I go somewhere and someone learns that I do localization, like, oh, translation, what languages do you speak? And my answer is always the same: time and money. Because if you're fluent in time and money, then you can do good in this job. And that's really because it's all about budgets and schedules and communications and being clearly stating it. So it's basically that, but it does help a lot. If you're doing a project in some language and you actually happen to know a little bit about it, you can understand, oh, they're using commas instead of periods for decimal places. Or, why is that funny thing always there? You can answer those questions. On the other hand, you can do something that's completely foreign to you, like Tibetan, hieroglyphics, and be okay with it, So there's definitely a continuum, but I think it does help a little bit, and sometimes more than a little bit.
I think it's not the knowledge of the language necessarily, but if you know some other languages, then you have the logic kind of, or sense
Right.
for the logic or languages. And that's what is a huge help actually, because I remember QAing before delivery as a project manager, Hebrew and Arabic and Chinese text. And of course, technology also helps, of course, nowadays especially. And because I checked the time and we are coming closer to the Q&A part, but before that, there is one more question I definitely want to ask our panelists. And we talked about the theory and how much you can learn, for instance, at the Fordham University in this localization program that we are starting soon. And we talked also about, okay, what is required on the industry side, what they can do to have in the end super professionals, localization project managers. But what is the career path you foresee for these people who join the program or who start as a localization project manager? What have you seen where have localization taken people in the industry? Because I think it can be very colorful the way people go, and this is probably also something good to know. Oh, everyone unmuted.
I'll chip in real quick. All I know is that this industry is very interesting in the sense that Amazon, for example, will hire a vendor, no problem. And then vendors will leave Amazon and go, people will leave Amazon and go work for a vendor. So, and that's just one company, obviously, it's a big company, but it's not unusual to see a lot of movement between organizations, especially an upward movement as well. Because granted, there's a skills scarcity that we talk about, but it's also very rewarding because now once you get into the industry, then you can start saying, oh, you know how to do that? I need someone who knows how to do that. And you start developing. So it gets pretty interesting. And the other thing is that most of the companies doing international globalization, localization are rather large companies. So you can be a small player and go to a big house, or be a big house person, go to a small player. So it's a lot of mobility and it's a lot of interest. And also, you can be international, right? By default, you get to travel. So it's kind of cool.
Steve Lank?
Yeah, no, I would just sort of echo exactly what Gilberto has just said, but also say that, there's I think we've mentioned this before. I mean, localization, language can touch any part of an organization, right? So there's all kinds of opportunity. There's opportunity on the language service provider side, like companies like mine and RWS and all the work that we're all doing. But there's also a lot of large organizations like Amazon and Google and Netflix have their own departments. So there's opportunities there as well. And I also think being a project manager in a language service organization, for example, is a great way to sort of learn because you have to, like everything in the life cycle of a project you go through. So you get a really great sense of how everything works and how the industry works, which really sets you up for taking on larger and larger roles. I mean, I know lots of project managers. I started out as a project manager myself. Now I'm vice president of operations for this company. I know a lot of great project managers who've gone to be very successful in sales, because having a deep background in the production cycle makes you can make you very valuable as a salesperson if you've got those skills as well. So sort of any sort of C-level positions in any company also exist in language service companies. And so that there's that career path. Now it depends on what your interests are, right? So you can go this way, you can go maybe into the engineering part of things, you can go into the management part of things. But there is, for a long time, it was really hard for us to articulate a career path. People thought they could start out as a translator or interpreter and maybe take on one or the other skill, like do both of those, but then they felt like they were going to be kind of stuck. But that's not at all the case. And I think that the project management part of it, starting out there, gives you this sort of 360-degree view of how things work, and then the ability to just go from there.
Yeah, I'll also chip in with my own experience, right? Before like many people on this call are industry friends, I stumbled upon the industry and got into the language industry by accident, like many of us. But before that, I had a background in technology and management consulting. But after my after a number of years working for language companies on the vendor side, I actually moved. I was working for the language translation division of a larger corporation. Then I sort of moved into product development, specifically software product development. So I sort of went in that direction because that's always close to my heart in technology. And then, but life sort of comes full circle. I came back to the language industry after a number of years in the software development. But then those two fields are converging as well, right? The technology field and the language industry, the services side and the technology side, because so much of what we do is technology driven. So I'm sort of able to bring both sides of my passion with the language and the culture with the technology side together. So that's been kind of my career path in some ways.
Yeah, and I guess just to wrap this one up, it's my job to give people the opportunity to move beyond project management. Mm-hmm. And so I love seeing employees go and either stay within this organization or go out into, Amazon, for example, or small nonprofits. It can be all the way down there, but in sales and account management roles, consulting roles, tech or product roles, technical delivery roles. I've seen people just make a complete jump into traditional marketing roles because international experience and knowing languages, especially because everything's global nowadays, is a highly, highly valued asset. So I've seen people really go everywhere.
Thank you, Jackie, and I love how you phrased it, that it's your job to have them come beyond this. I think that's great. And if I may also add something, but I think it's important to mention as well, is the network that you build as a project manager. I think that's a super great opportunity, being in that position, to really see all sides of this industry and to meet all the various stakeholders, because as you said, they are really there in the chair to talk to anyone and everyone, and how they leverage on this. I think it's also something that, a chance that you can take on and keep in mind as you build your career. We have 10 minutes left. I will have one more question that I keep for the end of the session. But now I would open up the discussion to everyone who joined the call and have something to ask or comment on this discussion. As I said in the beginning, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions. Or you are also welcome to type something in the chat that you would like me to say out loud on your behalf. Diego has left and said goodbye. Meanwhile, unfortunately, his connection couldn't deal with Zoom today. But let me check. There is no question in the Zoom yet. So why all?
Shelley's raising
there. Shelley, there is her. Exactly. Thank you, Steve. Shelley.
Hello. Good evening.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I have to. I'm on mobile because it's 10 minutes to 12 here. So I hope that's okay. So I just want to say that everything has been very good so far. Very interesting discussion, and I would just like to chime in that the talent gap for project management does not only exist on the hiring standpoint, but more on how to keep your talented project managers within your company. So it's also more of a problem of not only hiring, but also upskilling. So after their practical applications of everything, after they have the hands-on application of the tools, of the processes, of the different TMSs and everything. So where do they go from there? So how do you upskill them in order for, of course, upskilling goes to upscaling. And in our company, in QWERTYworks, I always say this to our project managers, that if you're a linguist, you're required to be an ace, but if you're a project manager, you're required to be a jack of all trades. So you have to have that skill sets in everything. So, and the very important thing also is to have a depth of understanding of the industry. Business acumen is very, very important. Like I think it was mentioned earlier that is it important to have a linguistic background? It's a nice to have, but I think the more important thing is to have that acumen. Like not only do you understand the language or you read the document, but as a project manager, you have to know what would be the purpose of this document that you are translating. Because as they say, if you're bilingual, you're not necessarily a translator. But if you have this understanding of why do we translate this, it all comes back to why. So I think it's also a good topic of discussion. And of course, from this side of the world, we're in upskilling project managers specific to localization. It's much more difficult because the industry or the number of language service providers here are not as many as the others on the West, and even the academia side of things also. I think very few here in Southeast Asia have specific degree programs specific to translators only. So how much more for translation project management? So I think this is a very good discussion and I wish we could cover more maybe on some other things, or we could check out the program of the localization project management. So
thank you, Shelley. Thank you. Who would like to comment on this? Panelists? Yes, Steve Lank.
I think that the Shelley's point about the business acumen is spot on. I mean, that's like, and just the fact that as a translator or interpreter, you're focused on one thing. You might be dealing with multiple subject fields, but like you're applying your trade. A project manager needs to do a lot, and they really need to have a 360-degree view. I said it's like, it's kind of, I imagine, I've never been an air traffic controller, but I imagine it's a similar thing, and so it can be really intense. But like you need to know like the purpose of what it is that you're doing, but you also need to you have to really understand what the business part of it, what's driving this, because that's going to help you serve your clients and come to a better product if you understand what's the business reasons that are driving the translation work at all. So I think Shelley's point about business acumen is really important.
Thank you, Steve. And I'm checking the chat, or are there any raised hands? Maybe someone would like to comment on hiring challenges or talent gap in here. Steve, yeah.
Well, I was also going to just chime in and respond to what Shelley was asking, that about keeping people, right? In survey after survey, study after study, we know that employees, the first thing that employers are not looking for is money. Of course, money important. You need to sort of pay people their fair market salary, but consistently, employees are looking for job satisfaction, a sense of fulfillment, professional development, upward movement, and those sort of things. And money is actually not even in the top 5, not even the top 3, really, when it comes to these sort of employee survey. I'm also just wondering, Shelley, I don't want to put you on the spot, but kind of for the audience, right? Whether, this particular talent gap or hiring challenges, what people in Asia, I know we have people from Vietnam as well, or from Europe, South America. If anyone sort of feels like, commenting on those things. Yeah. Otherwise, I do have a sort of a question from from the audience that I got earlier. Just to what degree, from the panelists, that as hiring managers, that you look for people who have CAT tool skills or TMS skills. Just wondering, what my colleagues think about this topic.
I guess I'll go quickly. I look for some skills in that area. So if they know a translation management system or a CAT tool, that would be excellent, really beneficial. And I'm surprised and often delighted if it's for the exact TMS or CAT tool that I'm thinking about for a particular customer. But the reality is you're not going to know everything. You're not going to know all the tools that are out there. So just having that basic knowledge of, say, MemoQ or Trato Studio is wonderful.
And I'll also say a lot of these things are transferable. So if you know one CAT tool, you know the concepts of other CAT tools, because they're not that different. So you can even get free cat. There's Smart Cat, which is free, Make Cat, which is free. I mean, these are things that are out there. So even you can self-start yourself and figure this out to a degree. Obviously, you end up needing help eventually.
Yeah, thank you. And because Shelley also mentioned the certificate program, I would like to take the opportunity and ask Dean Bryan and Steve to share a bit of details about the program. If there is anything you can already share, of course. If not, then just tell me that not yet. But it would be great if you could use these last minutes to talk a bit about the program details. So all those who joined today can also learn what to expect, what to wait for, and then spread the word.
Dean Bryan, would you like
Dean
to go
Bryan,
first?
I'll
if you
defer to
would
you.
like
It's high
to.
noon here in New York, and our clock tower is chiming for noon. So I'll let you take this question.
Sure, I'd be happy to, of course. I will post the link to the program in the chat shortly. The program is 6 months long, and it's open to people who either have no prior localization and language industry experience, or even people with some, right? We have a number of students who have applied who actually come from a translator background, interpreter background. And that's great because they're looking to, I think Steve Lank made that point, to further their skills. Being a good translator or interpreter and knowing how to speak another language, it doesn't automatically make you a good project manager. And so we have people from this profile, and it's 6 months long, it's 4 courses, and we just at a very high level, right? I don't want to turn this into an infomercial, but we start from the introduction to the language industry and get into localization, technology, and engineering. That's actually a course going to be taught by Gilbert. And then the 3rd and 4th courses are project management 1, which is overview, and project management 2, advanced topics. And the advanced course is where we get into some sort of the soft skills, program management, right? Strategic account management, client-facing skills, how to handle a difficult client situation, budgeting. And those are, I have to say, those are things that are not typically taught in a translation degree program. I think the translation degree programs that we have, especially in this country, right, do a very, very good job. But historically, they train their students to become translators and interpreters, and that's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. We do need those programs to continue training interpreters and translators. In fairness, though, that's changing, but I just feel like it's not changing as fast as we would like to see from the industry. But anyway, so that's kind of where I think a program like this sort of fits and fills that gap.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. And then Dean Bryan, if you now feel comfortable to unmute yourself, then please.
Yes, the clock has chimed 12. So yeah,
beautiful.
Thank you. Yes, I think Steve encapsulated it very well, that we did look for unique aspects when developing this program that we don't find in existing programs. Because as we said, we've thought a lot about the industry. We've thought a lot about what the needs are and where the gaps exist. And the goal for us is to be able, certainly to fill those gaps. In thinking long-term as well about the localization program, I have been thinking a lot about stacked credentialing and how this could work, long-term for us at Fordham as an add-on to some of our degree programs, especially, in modern languages, in our organizational leadership programs, because stacked credentialing is starting to become even more important for young professionals. So we have a very broad perspective on the potential for this program, and we're very pleased to have this partnership, and we are especially delighted to be aligned with the industry, and we think that there's great potential moving forward.
Yeah, these are very encouraging and motivating closing words, I would say. Thank you, Dean Bryan, and thank you all the panelists as well. Dean Bryan, Jackie, Gilberto, Steve Lank, and Steve, to thank you for sharing your insights with the audience, and thank you, the audience, that you all joined from from San Francisco to Ho Chi Minh City. So as I said, really covering the globe, and that's so good to see here. Thank you for making it today. You will receive the recording in a few days, as said in the beginning, and well, have a nice rest of day, evening, morning, wherever you are, and then hope to see you next time. Bye, take care.
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone. Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.